Alien's Guide to Being an Earthling, a podcast with me, Dr. Khushboo Shah, a consciousness based guide to creating the life and living you know should be possible with, for, and on planet Earth. Hello, and welcome everybody to episode number 2 of Alien's Guide to Being an Earthling with me, Dr. Khushboo Shah. I'm an Access Consciousness Facilitator, a Talk to the Entities Facilitator, and the founder of Earthlings. And today, my very first guest is the beautiful, quick-witted, highly intelligent Maya Dayan from Access. She's also an Access facilitator and an events coordinator with Access Consciousness. And I have known her for a few years from the periphery. Like I know you know how you know someone, but I mean, I know
many lifetimes ago.
Yeah, like I know you. I really know you, and yet I still don't know a lot of your this lifetime story. But I know, like all of us who found Access Consciousness at some point, there was something you were looking for before, and then you found it, and then you used the tools, and then today you're here. So, can you give me a little bit of a brief, a little background as to your childhood? Like, can you tell us more about yourself?
Sure. Honored to be here, and I had no idea I'm your first guest.
Yeah.
But that's we were talking about the title of this podcast, and that's pretty much how we can be and act as aliens on planet Earth. Like we don't need 100 hours of preparation. So, okay, I am Canadian, was born in Canada, and at age 5, my parents moved to Israel, which is in the Middle East, which pretty much has been kind of this ongoing war zone since the day it was formed as, well, actually even before that, but let's say since it announced its independence and up until today, it's always, there's some kind of conflict going on there on different levels. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. So that was the atmosphere that we moved into. And again, like I would say, some people grew up in way worse conditions, and I'm very grateful for where we lived and all that. But there was always this constant, in the background, there was always this constant fear for your safety, for your security, for as I mentioned to you before we recorded, the years that I was in elementary school, we had the Gulf War going on with Saddam Hussein, and one of his targets was to demolish Israel. That was one of his big targets as well. So we would go to school with gas masks, and we knew the drill to run into the bunkers, and like that was kind of this, that was the normal.
Yeah.
So all kinds of us developed some level of fear, PTSD, just living with that constant anxiety in the background in one way or another. And then we all have to enlist to the army because that's mandatory. So I also was a combat soldier for almost 2 years. And I guess after that, I was looking for something different.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's, this kind of a life is something that I've seen only on television or, in movies. But having a conversation with you kind of gives me a sense of how different that background is. And we all come from different backgrounds. But as you're talking about anxiety and PTSD, can you give me a little bit more information? So what did anxiety and PTSD look in your life? Like, how did it take shape?
Yeah, and also I just want to mention, of course, because we both use the tools of Access Consciousness, and part of me talking about this in such a relaxed and just kind of informational state is that I have the tools now that make my life so much easier, calmer, more peaceful. So in that sense, I just want to say everyone can get out of it. It takes what it takes. Every one of us has a different journey, but definitely I just changed most of it, all of it. Time will tell. We always discover all these hidden things that are still in there, and that's what happened to me throughout the years of access consciousness. And I just more and more layers of freedom from all kinds of past experiences, which was just amazing and a miracle and a gift. So I definitely remember like having nightmares always, like as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old waking up like sweating and, just fearing that war has begun or my house was bombed, or so there was nightmares, which was normal, quote unquote. And then in my 20s or early 20s, maybe, it was a time where there were a lot of suicide bombers. That was like the trend of the time with terrorism. So I would sit on a bus and then I would get super anxious. I'd be like, I have to get off this bus. Something's going to happen. It's going to explode. Like, so many times I wouldn't get to my destination. I would get off at some station and then I'd have to figure out what I'm doing now, or see if I take another bus or start walking. So again, there's just this low levels of like fear for your security in your life, which is one of these basic fundamental, I guess, human rights that I think even they talk about in world organizations. Like that's kind of one of the basic rights that they would like to assure that everybody has the right to feel safe and secure, kind of thing. So that was that was interesting to have that around all the time. And of course, not knowing how aware I was or how, how I could deal with that in a different way. It was just dealing with the fear and anxiety as it showed up, kind of thing.
So how did you find access? Like, what did you do before? Did you do anything before access? How did you come into access? What was the first tool with access that you used?
I actually, like, it's funny because I'm talking about all these things that have to do with kind of like security when it comes to living, and when actually access showed up was when I was pregnant with my second child. And again, there was a lot of fear and anxiety from a different direction. Like I lost previous pregnancy, so I was dreading connecting to this baby. So it was a very kind of sad situation to be in. Like I'm pregnant and it's supposed to be this exciting time of your life, and I was just like, I'm not going to connect to this baby. I'm like going to be detached till the last minute, till the baby's born. And I was willing to live like that, which is not a great quality of living. I was just like determined to not connect. And so about halfway through that pregnancy, I found the bars, which changed everything.
So she found the access bars, which was one of the first tools, or the first things that we usually find with access consciousness. So how was your first session with access bars? If you had to explain it in your own words, what are access bars and how that session was?
Yeah, it's interesting. It felt like nothing. So Gary Douglas and Dr. Dayan here talk about how you can go to a bars session, or Dr. Dayan has a very famous story of like going through a bars session and not wanting to kill himself ever again. And it's interesting because I have that and I don't. Like, on one hand, I know that I was at a dire state. I was like at the lowest of low kind of thing. And then I found the access bars. But when I left the session, I can't say that that was that day and night. But there was something, there was this sprinkle of something that I knew I was home. I knew I had to take the bars class. I knew I had to take foundation before I give birth. And I was already like 6 months pregnant. So like there was this something that started pushing me towards the direction of space, peace, freedom, and the anxiety and the fear and all the control systems started breaking away. But it was way more subtle. So it is interesting to look at it in hindsight, because I didn't exactly know what that session did, but I just knew I needed more of that, whatever it was.
Yeah, I think that's for most of us. Like you can't really pinpoint what it did, but you look at your life 10 years down the line and like, whoa, wow, whatever that was, it worked on some level. And your being knows it. Like you know it worked on some level and you keep going for more. Most of us, if not everybody. But wow. So how long has it been since your first session now? How many years has it been?
We're on April 2025, and I actually, my first session was like June 2020, 2015. So I'm going to celebrate 10 years this
10
year.
years, yeah. How does it get better? Decades through access. And so all of that anxiety, PTSD, can you give me more information about what you know about it now, what that was actually, and what tools helped you, especially from access, to deal with it? And how do you look at it now? How do you look at it? How do you look at the anxiety and PTSD now?
One of the first tools that you can find on YouTube, you can probably find on the Access website, or I don't know, if you do a simple search of who does this belong to, there's probably a million different resources nowadays to learn more about that tool. I would say that is such a huge tool with getting to know how much you're picking up everybody's thoughts, feelings, emotions, and whatever you think you are or your reality is, you start kind of separating from that as the only reality for you. And it can take, sometimes on one topic, it can take one conversation, sometimes it can take months and years to really get the vastness of that thing. So even talking to you before we made the date to record this podcast, I was like amazed how much, when all you have around you is this fear and anxiety and PTSD, you think it's you. You think that's like oxygen. You don't see it. It's all around you, and that's what you think you are. And you participate, whether, and you're almost even weird if you're not participating. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean you're not afraid? What do you mean you're okay?
You have, how are you not afraid?
Yeah.
That's also not.
So part of it was just talking through things while someone touching the bars point. It's amazing. Like I would highly, highly recommend. You never know how a session goes, right? Sometimes you just fall asleep, but a lot of times I can definitely notice, like when I was talking about a specific thing during a 1 hour session, what showed up after was amazing. Like this space around the same topic, or like we're talking here now, I can say, oh yeah, I would get off of buses and just be terrified, but in such a calm state as just reporting an objective situation that occurred. Which when you are in PTSD, you keep looping to that same event over and over again, thinking that it's occurring to you at now. Like, so that's a good indication for me that, it's not there anymore. And it's just something that I did experience, but like using the bars, which also has a PTSD energy that you can add to it. And all of the practitioners know how to do that. And starting to ask constantly, who does this belong to? And I do say it kind of wearily because I know how long it takes to actually get that. Or sometimes for some people, it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean, who does it belong to? I lived through it. I experienced it. I felt it.
It is mine. I felt it. It's mine.
Yeah. So see what it does for you. I know that I can see now how much I was facilitating that energy of fear for a lot of people, or like looking at that bus, how many people on that bus were terrified at that moment, or like just suddenly getting out of the victim mode of fear into like the empowerment mode of I'm highly aware being. And it's quite a transition.
Yeah. So, oh, that's a big transition to think you're the victim of whatever's going on in your surroundings, to get to a place where you know you're just aware. You are just aware of everybody's thoughts, feelings, emotions. And then when you start becoming aware of how aware you are, I think you get access to so much more choice now. Okay, wait, I can buy into this. I can buy into the constant broadcast of fear because it's still happening. Like, the broadcasting of fear all over the world, whether it's economics, whether it's terrorism, it's just constant broadcasting. So either we can actually fall prey to that broadcasting in fear and separation and hatred, or else uh, just realize, okay, who does this belong to? 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 Then you keep asking that for every thought, feeling, emotion that comes up. And you start getting to a place where you start noticing there's a different space you can be, and have you don't have to uh, follow the sheep. You don't have to go into that rut, and actually start creating a different reality where this broadcast of fear may not have that much of an effect on you in your future. So, yes, anxiety and fear. What if it is not what you think it is? What if it's just your awareness of everything that's going around? Everybody's thoughts, feelings, emotions, at least 800,000 miles in every direction. And all of the stuff that we're watching on news and blah, blah, blah. What if it is just your awareness? And what if you didn't have to buy it? And if you didn't buy it, would we be able to create a different future here? Something that isn't, on this repeat mode, but we actually create a different story, a completely different story 50 years down the line, 100 years down the line, 500 years down the line. And that's the whole point of Aliens Guide to Being an Earthling, right? Like it's we know something else should be possible. And yet when I look out into the world, I was like, oh my God, it's the same story. Like I remember being a kid and I read the same thing. It's just different people. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
not even different people, same people. But the storyline is the same and it doesn't seem to change. And one side is fighting with this and the other side is fighting and it's the same thing. So if you really truly want to change the world, um, maybe start looking at not buying into the fear and anxiety, and starting with some of these simple questions like who does this belong to, and like Maya said, running your bars, because what bars does is it removes the electromagnetic component of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And guess what creates the fear and anxiety? Thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Um, so the more you get your bars run, the less you're at the effect of this constant fear broadcast, and the more you start having access to the space, to the peace, to something else that should be possible here, that we know should be possible with the earth. So thank you so much, Maya. That was brilliant for someone coming from the Middle East. Uh, Growing up there, I'm sure is just different, and but yet also similar considering everything that we see in the world today. So how does it get better?
Yeah, and I guess last thing I would say is, part of that is that if you're in fear and anxiety, it's very easy to point to someone who you're supposed to hate after. Like the next
Yeah,
automatic action is where you create separation from certain people, which is something I never understood. Talk about like alien on planet Earth. It was
exactly.
like, why? Because we're different colors, because we're different nationalities, because we're different, religions, anything like that. So the more you're in that state of peace, the less that makes sense to you.
Yeah, I love it. The more you're in your sense of peace, the less this makes sense. Like you realize how insane it is. You realize that none of it is actually true and it's not really your reality. So if you're one of those aliens out there and you wonder, like, do I really need to hate anyone? Like you wonder, like, do I really have to separate? Well, these are great questions. And if you feel a little different and you know that you can't really take a side anytime, maybe look at something else. Maybe look at how aware you've always been, and maybe look at also what you know is possible. And train yourself to look at those possibilities and not the anxiety and the fear, because that may be what's required for us.
And it's possible to change it.
Yeah, we have a living example. I'm telling you, she's downplaying the anxiety and PTSD that she's gone through, but that's also because of the years of work that we've done and she's done, which means you don't feel it the same way. So you can't really put it across with so much intensity of feeling, but she's downplaying the PTSD and anxiety. And I'm sure it was quite intense when it was there, but 10 years down the line, a completely different life. I think you're traveling all over the world. You should see some of her posts. They're amazing. They're so inspirational. And there's so much more to talk to you about, how you're raising your kids, etc., etc. But that'll be for like another podcast, like an alien's guide to raising your children. That would be great.
Your mini Earthlings.
Yeah, the mini Earthlings. So thank you so much, everybody out there, for listening to this. Maya, is there anything else you'd like to say before? Okay, great. Thank you so much. I hope this conversation contributed to you and to whoever that's going to listen to this in the future. We will have so many more guests coming in, and I wonder what else is possible for us with the earth and what can we create as our life and living here 1,000 years from now. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for creating a space for aliens to come together and talk about possibilities.
Well, I think Access did that. They've just calling it a different name. That's about it. But thank you so much. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, everybody. See you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode. To know more, check out my website www.the-earthlings.com. To know more about Access Consciousness, go to www.accessconsciousness.com. If this contributed to you, do share and invite more listeners, and don't forget to subscribe. See you on the next episode.